All right, this is take 3 because there were so many disruptions. And then I decided I wanted to make the font in the list box bigger because you really just can't read what's going on. So this is the scenario where we kind of go in the other direction. It's really just still we're like transmitting things between forms, but you'll do something like this in your mainly what this is like how to use selected item in a list box to do kind of some of the tasks. So this will be the last video. I can teach you like all the pieces and how, just demonstrate how they work, but you're going to have to figure out how to put them together in the right way. And you don't have to do everything exactly like I did. You don't have to, I think you can maybe get away without creating a student class. And some of the stuff I do with tags and stuff, you could do it other ways, but I'm just kind of showing you what, along with what's in the book, kind of like reinforcing what's there. But you've got to make sure you do the data validation, because my program will crash if you don't put the right stuff in the right order. You're shitting, at least not easily. So make sure you add data validation. And some of your tasks will be a little bit different. Some of the forms will look a little bit different. So you got to take what I'm showing you here and put it together in the right way. All right, so let's set this up by adding again. So this is Joel Maroc. And we'll add a couple more. We'll do Cal L, because Joel, the way I wrote it there just a second ago, maybe it reminded me of Cal L. It comes from like Hebrew anyway, so Joel. Cal L, yeah. Sarwinu, like one of the strongest and definitely the weakest factions in Twilight Imperium. All right, so I got 3 here. They all have the same scores because, again, those are pre-baked. Yours should have the ability to add scores at will. So this is the thing that I want to show you. I want to show you how if you pick one of these, highlight it like that, you can work with it. So what I'm going to do is add a score to Cal L. So he should have something like 10,000 because he's Superman. And you can see now that's added that score. So how did I do that? This is something you'll have to do in your lab. Something similar anyway. What I did, I made a couple of tweaks. I did this more like what I have in the lab. In my lab, I don't just have the list box. I also have a list. So a list is not a list box. A list box has a list in it, but it's a graphical control. It's a graphical component in your form. The list is just the code behind. It's like an array, a list. It's a data structure that's a collection of things. So this is a list of students. So I declare a variable as a field. See how it's form class form at the beginning of the class right here? The very top of my class, I have a field level variable, class level variable, instance variable, field, whatever you want to call it. It's a list of students type variable called students. If I don't have this cough drop in my mouth, I'll probably start coughing again. You could do this. Let me show you what I mean. This is a typical thing you do. It's probably the correct way to do it. I just never learned it this way. I have a instinctive, hold on, I'll put new in there. Don't forget your new. You can do this as well. I always do it using the constructor. So what I mean is in my constructor for this class, I take the students and assign a new list to it. So I create the object here. You can do it either way. That's how I do it. The reason I do this is because it makes some of these methods that refer to the list, well, it keeps all the students in one place throughout the whole project. And also, if you declare it up here, you can refer to the students variable throughout your methods. So the little tweak I do for when I add, remember how this works, right? I declare a form variable, assign that enter name form to it. I instantiate a form enter name and get, which looks like this. Looks like, it's probably not been as long for you, but it's been like earlier in the day for me because I had to eat. Remember, here's this. I'll move that over a little bit. You put the name in here, it gets the text box right when you click OK. When you click OK is a little bit of what's different. This doesn't change, but form main does slightly. Instead of adding the name to the list box, first you get it from the tag, right? And then you add the student to the list box. Instead of that, add it to the list. This list. All right, the one you create here, and there's the variable for it. I add it to that list. And then I have this little method called ListStudents. It just refreshes my list box. There's different ways you can do this. Later on, you learn about data source methods. We haven't learned this yet, so I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. First, I clear out all the items so I don't get redundancy. And just to refresh everything, I clear everything out, and then I add every student in my list. Right? This is the list of students. I add those to the list box. So for each student in my students list, I add each one to the list box, and it kind of gives a refresh. So that's that. The update, what I do for it, you kind of have to reverse the order of things. So first, I figure out which student in the list box is selected. And keep in mind, these objects that are in the list box and the ones in the list are the same objects. So if you change one, you're changing the other. So what I do is I figure out which one's selected. That's what the selected item of a list box does. I assign that to a student. Keep in mind, all the objects that are stored in a list box are just objects, just like the tag property. They're stripped of their studentness and become just bare objects. So you have to convert them back. You're not really converting, but you need to treat them, put them in the clothes of a student again so you can assign them to a student variable. You can't do this assignment unless you're assigning a student to this. They have to agree. It's almost like gender or something in a language, or number. You have to make the adjective agree with the noun, or however you want to think about it. But you have to cast this to this bare object to a student. It is a student object. It's just your syntax doesn't know that until you cast it. All right, and then you instantiate a new form for updating. See if we get another bark. If we get a couple more, I'll pause. My life is on hold until this siren goes away. This is my life. I might be ready again. I don't even know where I was at. I had to wait forever. You can probably see the time in the lower right-hand corner. Seems like forever. It wasn't that long. Anyway, create a new form that's an update form. And right after you create that form, put the student in the tag so it can refer to that student from itself, because it will be in that new form's tag. It'll be stripped of studentness again. It'll be just a bare object. You have to cast it out on the other side. And then you do the show dialog so the form actually shows up and the person can interact with it. So let's look and see what happens with it. If you double click on the title bar, it takes you to the form load event. So the first thing I do is I get the student out of the tag. So again, get used to this pattern where you cast things that are in things that hold things as just objects. That's how things move around in this stuff. You treat it, you package it up or as an object, ship it over, and then unpackage and dress it back up in its original data type. So you take the student, again, this is the student variable at the top, right? This is how it makes it more efficient to do things with it. I just use the student variable up here in the field. And then what I do is I take the label that I've got on the update form and I put the student's name in that. So that means as soon as that update form loads up, you can see the student's name. So let's run it again so you'll see what I mean. All right, so I type add. I should just pre-bake this so I don't have to keep doing the add part, but it's okay. So we're adding Joel Muruggan. He's the only guy. We need to make sure we highlight him. I don't have error checking for this. You need to set it to where if nothing's selected, please select something for when they click the update, right? I haven't got that in there. So I got to make sure I select something or it'll crash. So I update, and there it is. See this part right here. It gets, as soon as the form loads, it gets the student from the tag, and then it gets his name and puts it in this label right here. Then I can put like a score in, 1001, click OK. That sends back the dialog result OK to the former thing, to the calling form, and let's look and see what that is. That is FRM main. Always click on the wrong tab. So when it does that, it just lists the students again, because that Joel Maroc was never taken off the list. Just a pointer to it was sent to the other form, and you updated the thing. It's still on the list box, but it's still on the list. It's still on the student list. And then what I did is I cleared out everything in the list box and then added everything back, so it would refresh with the new score. I don't want to go into the other ways to do that. That's just the most straightforward for you guys, from what you know already. So again, empty out the list box and then re-put everything in. It's like a refresh. That's it for this example. Again, you're going to have to put these things together yourself. I can't remember if I said that in this video. Like, I can teach you all the pieces, but I can't show you how to do the whole thing. You have to figure out how to put everything together yourself. And don't forget to error check or data validation, combo, whatever exceptions, whatever you need to do to make your program not crash. Again, so let me show you what I mean. If you just run this program and the first thing you do is click update, it'll crash because there's nothing in the list. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. Student was null. There's nothing in the list box. There's nothing in the list or the list box. So whenever you try to refer to something that's null, like if I try to get at the student name of null, there is no student name of null. There's nothing there. So that's why it crashes. You got to make sure that that doesn't happen with something like, if the selected index is -1, I think. If nothing's selected, that's what it would be. You can make a message that says please enter. Just I don't want to show you all too much, but just look the book. Actually, before I finish, look at the code for the customer form, I think is what it's called. You'll see some of these techniques in here, especially the part when I'm talking about valid data. Look at the isValidData method and all that stuff to see how they do that. You can use some of these techniques in your lab. But I don't know. If you have any questions, don't forget there's office hours. Don't forget the exam next week. Go ahead and take the quiz. That's the practice for AutoLock to make sure your system meets all the requirements. We don't have to try to figure this out right when it's time to take the exam starting next Friday. Okay, thank you.